We get to start a new chapter today in Merging with Śiva 42, entitled The Evolution of Consciousness, drawn from Master Course 1967 and 1970 editions with upadeshas from July-August 1989. Lesson 288, piṅgalā sushumṇā. In mystic cosmology, the seven lokas, or upper worlds, correspond to the seven higher chakras. The seven talas, or lower worlds, correspond to the chakras below the base of the spine. Man is thus a microcosm of the universe, or macrocosm. The spine is the axis of his being, as Mount Meru is the axis of the world, and the 14 chakras are portals into the 14 worlds or regions of consciousness. The actinodic life force within the sushumṇā current runs up and down the spine and becomes very powerful when the ida and piṅgalā, or the odic forces, are balanced. Then man becomes completely actinodic. He doesn't feel, in a sense, that he has a body at that particular time. He feels he is just a being suspended in space. And during those times, his anāhata and viśuddha chakras are spinning and vibrating. When through the practice of very intense, sustained states of contemplation, he merges into pure states of superconsciousness, the ida and piṅgalā form a circle. They meet, and the pituitary and the pineal glands at the top of the head also merge their energies. This produces deep samādhi. The pituitary gland awakens first, and through its action stimulates the pineal. The pineal shoots a spark into the pituitary, and the door of Brahman, the Brahmarandra, is opened, never to close. I once saw the Saraswara on a long stem above my head when I was in New York in 1953 or 54. The sushumṇā force also merges, and the kundalini, which is at this time playing up and down the spine like a thermometer, as the fire, heat, body of man, rises to the top of the head, and man then goes beyond consciousness and becomes the self and has his total self-realization. Nirvikalpa samādhi. The ida nadi is pink in color. It flows down, is predominantly on the left side of the body, and is feminine, passive in nature. The piṅgalā nadi is blue in color. It flows up, is predominantly on the right side of the body, and is masculine, aggressive in nature. These nerve currents are psychic tubes, shall we say, through which prana flows from the central source, Śiva. The prana is flowing down through the ida and up through the piṅgalā, but in a figure 8. The sushumṇā nadi is in a straight line from the base of the spine to the top of the head. The ida and piṅgalā spiral around the sushumṇā and cross at the third chakra, the manipura, and at the fifth chakra, the viśuddha, and meet at the sarasvara. This means that there is a greater balance of the ida and the piṅgalā in man's will center, the manipura chakra, and in his universal love center, the viśuddha chakra, and of course at the great sangha center, the meeting place of the three rivers, the sarasvara chakra. The sushumṇā nadi flowing upward is the channel for the kundalini shakti, which is white. It is the cool energy as white contains all colors. When the Kundalini rises, which happens almost imperceptibly under the Guru's watchful eye, consciousness slowly expands. The novice only knows of the subtle yet powerful spiritual unfoldment when looking back to the time the practices were begun. Now he sees how life was then and how now his soul's humility has overtaken the external ego. Isn't that great? Soul's humility has overtaken the external ego. Through breathing exercises, meditation, and the practice of Hatha Yoga, the Ida and the Piṅgalā, the aggressive and passive odic forces, are balanced. So Gurudev is giving us 3 ways of balancing the Ida and Piṅgalā: breathing exercises, meditation, and the practice of Hatha Yoga. When they are balanced, the chakras spin all at the same velocity. When the chakras spin at the same velocity, they no longer bind awareness to the odic world. Man's awareness then is automatically released, and he becomes conscious of the actinodic and actinic worlds. Those chakras at the crossing of the Ida and Piṅgalā are the more physical of the chakras, whereas those at skips are energized by the sushumṇā itself. When the yoga is really centered within, the Ida and Piṅgalā then blend together in a straight line and merge into the sushumṇā, energizing all 7 chakras. And in the older soul, slowly, very slowly begin to energize the 7 chakras above the Saraswara. When this happens, he no longer thinks, but sees and observes from the ajna chakra between the eyes. He is totally consciously alive or superconscious. It is only when the Ida and Piṅgalā begin functioning normally again that he then begins to think about what he saw. Then we get the Shum series for Kundalini. Si a cliff, hill, or a mountain. Si ascending, climbing, moving upward. Si sensing the Kundalini energy rising in the center of the spine. Kundalini ascending through all of the 7 kamshumalinga. The Kundalini force moving upward into the head. Lifting the Kundalini force from the feet to the top of the head. Interesting series to explore. Lesson 289, Kundalini out of control. There are 3 channels through which the spiritual energies of the Kundalini can rise. The one recommended is the sushumṇā. The other 2 are to be avoided. When the Kundalini Shakti flows outside of the sushumṇā nadi into and through the Ida nadi on the left side of the spine, which corresponds to the left sympathetic nerve system, it is fragmented into other smaller and more sensitive nerve currents connected to the organs of the physical body. It produces heat within this formerly cool nadi network. The person becomes overly emotional, feminine in nature, talks a lot, often has hurt feelings, cries at the least provocation, and engages in other emotional behavior patterns that center around the personal I-ness. Such persons always want to help others, but rarely actually do. This heat, though astral, is felt in the physical body and the solar plexus. When provoked, the person angers and is always quick to defend the personal ego in saving face. Similarly, when the serpent power flows up through the piṅgalā nadi and into the sympathetic nerve system on the right side of the body, the person becomes overly intellectual, very masculine in nature, talks little, has steel nerves and patterns centering around the conquest of others through intellectual debate. He is prone to long silences, holding in emotions and to secret patterns of behavior to stimulate or satisfy base desires. In other words, he is not open, smiling, friendly, companionable. In either case, the Kundalini Shakti rising through the Ida or Piṅgalā can move upward only to the viśuddha chakra and no farther. This is the impasse. The misdirection of the Kundalini happens most often to the less disciplined, those more eager for attainments on the fast track, those not under the watchful eye of the Satguru. Nevertheless, the novice feels a dynamic awakening of power. This heat, produced by the Kundalini Shakti flowing through either of these two nadis of the sympathetic nerve system, can and often does produce jerking in the body, spine, and neck. You don't see that as much as I used to, but back in the 60s and 70s, you'd see more jerking because people were trying various Kundalini techniques, more so then than now. More often than not, the jerking body, twisting neck, and the I now know it all attitude are taken for a highly spiritual experience and even validated as such by certain teachers. But it is as if we were driving on a rocky road, thinking it to be a smooth highway. It is an unusual experience, to be sure, building the personal ego into something it was never intended to be. When this happens to a devotee, the wise guru or swami recommends that all spiritual practices be immediately stopped. Japa should be stopped. All pranayama except the simplest regulation of the breath should be stopped. Reading scripture should be stopped. Worship of all kinds should be stopped. Anything other than wholesome, humbling karma yoga, such as cleaning bathrooms, should be stopped. Growing food should be encouraged. Bare feet on the ground and at the same time hands in the dirt is the best way to bring the rampant Kundalini down to the Muladhara chakra. Once it is down, it can be directed up through the right current, but only when the devotee does not have conflicting patterns in his life. So that's a remedy that Gurudeva used on occasion, growing food and stopping all practices except the simplest. Unlike the subtle movement of the divine serpent power through its proper channel, the sushumṇā nadi within the spine, its misdirection may reflect a dramatic change in the nature, turning the once humble student into an ego giant, either overly emotional and self-centered, or intellectually argumentative. Both types are not self-reflective in any way. From a perhaps once shy person, we now have a come to me, I will fix you, repair you, inspire you, for I am aware. Or worse, I am enlightened. Once the spiritual ego has taken over, some even claim to have attained more than their teacher. They don't need a teacher anymore. For them, the guru is on the inside. And their heated discussions, emotional outbursts, and challenging positions eventually take their toll on their own being. Interesting study, isn't it? The Kundalini going up the wrong channel. Have a wonderful day.